welcome to Holly's Business Pharmacy, episode 8. And today we're going to talk about all things neurodiverse and the superpower that it is. We have an amazing guest coming on, but more on that later. Thank you, Dell Technologies, as ever, for allowing me to be here with this community of people where we're striving to learn more, to improve ourselves, to grow our mindsets, and to ultimately grow incredible businesses or jump off that fence that we've been standing on for too many years and go for it. We're going to talk to the wonderful Dr. Samantha, who is the founder of ADHD Girls and a neurodiversity and ADHD keynote speaker and consultant. So this is why the pharmacies are amazing. We get to speak to absolutely incredible people, these are people that you wouldn't necessarily be able to speak to yourself, and yet we do it for you. Here we go.
Hi, Holly, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, I managed to get in the end, but yeah, it's up for you guys.
Sometimes it's a nightmare. It's lovely to see you, to be with you. I'm wondering, Samantha, introduce yourself and your business.
I'm Dr. Samantha Hugh, and I'm the founder of ADHD Girls. I'm a neurodiversity and ADHD keynote speaker, trainer, and consultant, and I created a company with a dual mission to empower girls and women with ADHD to thrive in society and to improve neurodiversity understanding through intersectional lens.
Oh, right. Now, this is going to be juicy. So, Samantha, how would you define neurodiversity from an expert?
Oh, well, neurodiversity itself includes all of us. It is the diversity of the human mind within all humans on Earth, right? So it's the way we learn, process information, the way we think, and the way we act and feel in the world. But then the neurodiversity championing those who have been marginalized by society, those who have brain differences that have been considered, underrepresented, throughout the decades and centuries. And these are those with neurological differences that are mostly impacted during brain development, throughout our lives and childhood, like autism, ADHD, Tourette's, dyslexia, dyspraxia. But the definition of neurodiversity is expanding the more we know about it. It also includes mental health challenges, the things that happen to us, and they not just our genes, not just our nature, but also nurture, the experiences and the history we've had that impact how our genes manifest, through epigenetics. So mental health challenges and disorders such as bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, major depressive disorder, and generalized anxiety disorder are also considered, within the neurodiversity umbrella.
Wow. I mean, all of that span of conditions that you're talking about. Tell me, I shared earlier that I'm dyslexic, and lots of people sharing here today their own journeys of what they are with ADHD or with dyslexia. And I actually, when I was, felt stupid, I didn't feel empowered. And what you're doing is amazing. Now, when I talk to my niece, I have a different way of talking to her about it, because she can look at me and we can talk about the people I interview, and I can say so many of them have a different way of thinking. That's actually what made them magical. And she right now hasn't got something that she's working with, but her friends do in her classroom. So she's much more open-minded. What do you think is the impact of a later neurodiversity diagnosis? So you're not a child, you're an adult. What do you think is the impact?
Well, that's such a great question, and like such a multi-layered question as well, because when you get diagnosed later in life, we are, actually research has shown that just getting a disability label later in life, or like halfway through, you are going through a traumatic time, because it forces you to reassess your life priorities, and question who you are to begin with. So the way that neurodivergence, ADHD, autism, dyslexia has been framed throughout the decades, and you would know this, from your experience, that it has been seen as something that's lacking, because we really failed to fit into the societal norms, starting from school, and then to workplace, and every single transition of our lives, you know, we've had to figure out how to do the things as people do. And it is so tough. Like, so the average age for women to get diagnosed with ADHD now is 36 to 38. And why is that? It's because our responsibilities increase. We're also going through hormonal changes, you know, that actually before the large hormonal change, you know, we have somehow maybe managed to find a way to cope, you know, but then when that happens, then, you know, we literally fall off the cliff, you know, when we have these fluctuations during perimenopause and menopause, we start to question ourselves, are we losing our mind? You know, because we know that estrogen, the sex hormones, you know, is indirectly regulating dopamine. And so when estrogen fluctuates, our dopamine levels also fluctuate, and dopamine levels are known to be reduced in the brain of someone with ADHD. You know, but yeah, but like you say, this IG Live is about neurodiversity, and ADHD rarely travels alone. So, you know, we have differential levels of neurotransmitters in our brain depending on the mix of neurodivergence that we have. But generally, other things can also add to that lower level of dopamine, like early trauma, you know, adverse childhood experiences, which a lot of ADHDers are known to have had early in life, you know, trauma from just living in this world and having might not know also of the neurodivergence. So yeah, it is a coaster.
So that is fascinating. I did not know that at all, and this is why these conversations today, what you do, is so vitally important. I you know, over the last 10 years, I definitely see my dyslexia, which is light in comparison to others, you know, being a superpower. But I remember when I started not in the high street, or I was even going back to when I started my job in advertising. I was young, and I literally almost just couldn't even write. Like I was, and my boss would take my work and would, with a red pen, rewrite all over it and then hand it back, and literally without, you know, she didn't know, I didn't know. Do you know what I mean? So it was okay. But I remember then going into building not in the high street, and it meant that I had no confidence as an owner of my business to write an email. I had none. So I would give it to my business partner, who happens to be someone who could rewrite the dictionary, right? So we had these two various skills, and she would rewrite and check my emails with love. But can you imagine the confidence then for me to do anything was crazy. So what are your thoughts then of neurodivergence as a superpower? What is that? Yeah, I'd love to ask you that, Samantha.
Holly, I just wanted to preface that by saying, you know, a lot of us have internalized the things that we thought we couldn't do. But then, you know, this is what we now know known as learned helplessness. You know, it's when you had a history of being made to feel like you couldn't do something, and then you go on to kind of believe that. But then part of understanding your identity is to realize that actually I've developed some coping strategies. Those strategies still work. I don't forget that they work once I get diagnosed. And also I don't kind of, you know, put a block on myself before I even had a chance to venture through. And so, yeah, it's really sad, because I see that so much, and I myself have that, you know, because when you say which part of neurodivergence is a superpower, I would say that it really depends on your experiences, because we have both strengths and challenges, and that's what made us humans. But then what, you know, contributes to our challenges, it could be part of our neurodevelopmental conditions, or, you know, it's just the way that we've experienced the world. But then in terms of strength, you know, there are plenty, because with autistics and ADHDers, and often autism and ADHD tend to co-occur within somebody. And so you could have very opposing traits. So you could have some of the systems thinking, you know, ability to see a big picture, being innovative and creative, because we have, you know, the part of the brain that is the seat of our imagination and creativity is switched on most of the time, at the same time as a part of the brain that asks us to do things. So that's why we are distracted from something, but we're actually also very able to tap into creativity, you know, and well said.
And can I ask, Samantha, you're talking from a personal point of view, aren't you, as well? Can you tell people about your own personal journey?
Yeah, so it's very rocky, I suppose. Like, I think I had a difficult childhood, you know, with parents who did not really understand their own neurodivergence. And I was the oldest girl in a family of 5 children. And in an Asian family, that means you do all the housework and help your mom. So actually, as soon as I could, I really wanted to find out who I am, because there's so much in my society. I grew up in Malaysia. There's so much in my culture that really, you know, kind of forces somebody to achieve and get the good grades, that even with ADHD, I was controlled by my environment to do well. And the only chance I had, you know, to do well in life was to get, you know, a good grade in school. And so, yeah, I kind of forced myself to double down, which is something I find very common in my community. A lot of perfectionists doubling down on effort and then burning out and developing anxiety as a result. And so, yeah, some of the most challenging times of my life were when I went through, you know, period from coming here, you know, to attend my postgraduate education and then going into motherhood. That was really, really tough because of postnatal anxiety, because no one tells you what to expect, right? When you get into becoming a mother for the first time, it's all beautiful and blissful, you know, earth mother type of persona. But I was nothing like that. I was everything of the opposite, trying to be that, you know, person, which that's not me, you know. And it was so tough. So eventually landed into the existential crisis that lasted over 10 years, not knowing who I am, like, because I've always defined myself by my achievement, by my, you know, education. But then without that, I was like, who am I? So it took a long time to really figure it out, you know. But a good way to do this is to reflect and record, you know, your thoughts and feelings, which I did a lot since I was a teenager. And eventually really, you know, explored different creative industries and realized that actually I could put all the different skills that I have developed into one place. And that's where ADHD Girls was born. And I've always needed an emotional purpose and humanitarian purpose to what I do. So that's where I am now, a very accidental founder.
Thank you so much for explaining that. That is so fascinating. I'm just going to read some comments out here. We have GJF Furnishings. I really need to pick up the phone and make an appointment to discuss getting a diagnosis for ADHD and autism, because I can't for fear of being told I'm wrong. So frustrating to be feeling stuck. The stalls market, my daughter has autism. After it nearly breaking me when we found out, I call it her superpower. It's a positive. I now believe, and it's just people's different personalities. Popsy Clunk, I always tell my daughters, it's good to be different. You're not them, but you are you. And that's our motto. Clinkly Cloth, struggled for sure academically and socially. I was told to come out of my shell. Fenton Yard Flowers, my childhood dyslexia is the main reason for my self-motivation and work ethic. I actually am grateful for it. Fawn Cornwall, loving this chat, solidarity here. Wouldn't you love one? I know so many parents, friends who are struggling to get the support and the diagnosis for their little ones at the moment. Katie Goodwin, artist, this is so validating. Mark Shayla, who's lovely to be here, change happens at the edges, not the middle. Neurodiversity is a gift. I mean, what a brilliant thing, Mark, to say. Tell me, Samantha, when you yourself were going through these moments of changing in your life, did you feel, and I know obviously you've started your company because you didn't feel that there's the support. Right now I feel, and I've heard it from other friends, Samantha, do you feel the support is out there for people who either are not diagnosed or want to explore this?
Well, actually, there is, but then there's been a lot of hit pieces that came out in the last few weeks about, you know, like how everyone can get an ADHD diagnosis. And that has really, you know, had a blow on ADHD diagnosis in the NHS, because there are a lot of clinics that are stopping referrals and, you know, not giving people the medication because they want to be careful. But then the supports are coming out in private groups, you know, I mean, and the charities that are working to increase education, and they're lobbying the government. But, you know, because of this, because of the demand, there's been a lot of private clinics, private groups, you know, that's been set up, you know, and I offer a workshop as well to help women with ADHD to figure out, you know, what is it that can help you apart from medication, because it's, you know, it's pills don't make skills. So there is an increase in neurodivergence, you know, and this movement itself, you know, feels quite comforting because, yeah, I mean, you could see all these hit pieces or documentaries, but then, you know, you come back to your group, or, you know, you go on LinkedIn or you go on Instagram, that people are talking about the same thing, you know, what people are just like, you know, the ones who don't know or who are not in this journey, they won't really understand. So there is, yeah, definitely with what someone said just now, a sense of solidarity, you know, in terms of communities comparing notes, because that's really what it is, because we were failed by, you know, healthcare and people's perception of what neurodivergence is. So we created support ourselves, you know, as women. We create the thing that we couldn't see anywhere, and you did the same, you know. We are really resourceful, and that's one thing that I like closer to, is because I ran a survey recently, and I asked my designer, you know, the survey was about what are your coping strategies, you know, with ADHD, what are your diet, lifestyle, you know, strategies. And then I got like loads and loads of responses from hundreds of people, and then I put it into a word cloud, which I'm going to show it in my workshop, and I'm happy to share it with you as well when I have it. It's just amazing because we've found ways to heal ourselves, you know, and these I mean, but yeah, at the end of the day, we still need people, you know, we still need to work with other people, you know, especially when it comes to therapy and coaching. You know, it's best not to do it ourselves as well. You know, we've found ways to self-medicate, like positively, but then a lot of us also self-medicated in a not so way.
In not the healthy way. Tell me, Samantha, what are the ADHD symptoms that you would say we could look out for in women?
Yeah, so there are so many. Like I drew this iceberg. So a lot of people think that women with ADHD are mostly inattentive, daydreamers. And you see that more with the girls, you know, young girls. But latest research have shown that inattentiveness is the same between men and women, you know, and in adulthood, because we all internalize hyperactivity. So it's not so obvious, you know, but then hyper-talkativeness is definitely something that, you know, a lot of women with ADHD identify with, hypersocial, hyper-reactive, actually. So like there are issues, but one of the things that women in my community, you know, said to me, like they wished emotional dysregulation is in the DSM-5, you know, in diagnosis of ADHD, because we do struggle when there's a trigger, you know, to really kind of hold our lid, because we can go from 0 to 100, you know, very quickly. But we know now that also, you know, is impacted by the context of your life. If you are stressed in an environment where you are expected to do a lot, and most of the time women do, right? Because we have fulfilled a role in society, trying to like run a business, have a career, you know, have children, and then, you know, have a relationship. Like what else can we put on top of this? You know, societal expectation is another one. Misogyny is another one, unfortunately, which I, you know, had some of. But these are like the invisible layers, you know, that people don't really talk about. But then actually what is contributing to women with ADHD feeling overwhelmed, you know, and part of also the reason that lead to overwhelming emotional issues and mood disorders that people love to stick a label on women is our hormonal impact. You know, through hormonal changes, and then perimenopause, menopause, you are dealing with fluctuation of hormones that you have no idea what is going on, when to expect, how to record, and this can last up to 10 years. You know, and if we are privileged, then you can go and get your hormones tested and, you know, get it. But then NHS doesn't provide that, or actually the right way to provide that. You know, HRT works for some people, it doesn't work for others, and it's to understand like what is going on with your body. You know, and a lot of time this is tough to disentangle if we don't have the resources to do so.
Absolutely, Samantha. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. So neurodiversity is about the the never-ending ways that each person's brain could just be made up, the same as in our bodies, right, and in our hormones. And I've heard many people talk about the sort of blanket approach of HRT within the NHS, which is that basically sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes you need one of the things and not the other, all of these sorts of things. And as you said, it's a journey, it's a 10-year journey. And actually, if you also are neurodiverse, on top of that, and on top of having a home, having children, having a job, you know, it can become a recipe for things falling apart. And as you said, you've been very open with your own experience of that. I'm just going to read out a few more comments. Sparkle's Eco Shop. I was diagnosed with dyslexia and dyspraxia in my late 20s during my last year of university, only because I asked to be screened for dyslexia. Scarlet Impressions. I'm not diagnosed. I'm 41 now. And the idea of going through the process and almost having to fight for it is very off-putting. Pink Lime Mango, thank you for sharing your story, Samantha. I really resonate with it. Crinkly Cloth, yes, exactly. Drifting off in school lessons after too much information. We've got a question here. Blackberries and Astronauts, what a great name. I have turned 50. I'm only just realizing that this is me. How do I ask my GP without them dismissing me? I've been on antidepressants for years and now HRT. Perimenopause has made me realize there's more going on than just hormones. So Samantha, what would your recommendation be for this 50-year-old who wants to ask the GP, but she's worried about being dismissed?
Right. So like really start to understand, like you seem to be really self-aware of like how ADHD manifests or you know, the symptoms and challenges that you're going through. I would like print out the right to choose template, you know, because with the GP, if they feel like you fulfill the criteria for ADHD assessment, which is the 18 questions that you have to fill in, but then that 18 questions is very gender biased, you know, so it's basically tailored to naughty white boys. So a lot of things might not resonate with you, especially when you found coping strategies, but it's to understand yourself and to understand how ADHD manifests in women, especially, you know, when we enter menopause and perimenopause, and then, you know, arm yourself with this knowledge and then go with confidence, you know, so be prepared for pushback because that would happen, you know, and if, you know, that is too much of a trouble, try and go to a private clinic, you know, because really ultimately we just need the answer so that we can know what to do with the information, because there are a lot of things you can do also before you start your diagnosis journey. But it's to understand what support you are actually looking for by getting a diagnosis, because some people diagnosis, but a diagnosis will allow you access to medication and, you know, the rest, like CBT and, you know, work-based adjustments.
But I think, Samantha, also you really bring to light such an important thing. And a question I have here is, so that person there, Blueberries and Astronauts, you know, is worried about that diagnosis. As you said, what is the diagnosis for? Is it to, I can imagine you just want to know, you know, you've just felt it in your heart. You're getting older, you just want to know who you are, and actually then maybe build an environment or have the knowledge to build that environment to support you. But I can imagine, Samantha, that diagnosis of ADHD or any other neurodivergence in later life can impact the concept of our identity. Tell me about that.
So that is really hard for me to answer as well, because I'm going through this myself, and everything that I learn, you know, I share with the community, because I'm 3 years into this. And really, when you get a label, you're going to look at the tick list underneath the label, and part of it is going to be internalized within you. Some people will forget who they were before they had a diagnosis. They forget the strengths that they, you know, held in order to get them through things. Because so much of what is underneath this label is pathologized, you know, and that the medical model of disability, which we're trying to change with the neurodiversity movement. But then because this still exists in ample amounts on the internet and on the literatures, which also made me depressed when I looked into it in order to create my work, you have to remember who you are, like root in your sense of self. Like, and I love this concept of identity because we can be temporarily destabilized because of this new identity, but it to really
Yes.
understand who we are and then see that what information can we do with the label, you know, in order to seek help. Is it medication? Is it, you know, looking for some compounds that could help us increase our dopamine or, you know, estrogen naturally? Is it, you know, to go to a naturopath, you know, to see like what it is that you need in your body? You know, I've gone and done a genetic test, you know, only because I'm curious in that way. But like, you know, is there things that you can do, you know, to help yourself that is not pathologizing and self-chastising, you know, and then forward with this sense of self that you know who you are, and, you know, start to dismantle like your history and figure out how you could rebuild to be, you know, going into life, you know, with positivity. Because if you start your life today, you know, regardless of your history, what would you like to do with that information, you know, to make the most of it?
Yes. And I think that what you're saying here is, so for a lot of people watching today, it might be a child that they have or a child that they know. So what we're really trying to say here is the quicker that they can know who they are, they can build a life and an environment and support, and the fact that society is waking up to this, allowing them to not be adults and then have to have maybe a diagnosis then, and everything then could change for them. Who are they? Were they always this? And build support around them, you know, later on in life. So ultimately we're saying, you know, the more we know who we are, the better from the offset. But if you are watching this and you are older, it's never too late, because ultimately you've known something. You might be scared about getting it, but ultimately people like yourself, Samantha, with ADHD girls, you know, this is the change that's happening. This was not here 20 years ago. This is not something that, you know, we had as resources. I also think that potentially when we think about finding our anchors, you know, what is it that, you know, if you are diagnosed later in life and this concept of identity is going out, ultimately you're still the same person, aren't you? Before diagnosis and after diagnosis. Isn't that right? If you were on a desert island, you'd still be the same person. It's just we're more aware of ourselves. And I hope that after diagnosis, your dreams can be exactly the same as they were. Your vision for yourself and your ambition can be exactly the same. It's just you now potentially have your eyes wide open to what support and help you might need. Do you agree,
Yeah,
Samantha?
I absolutely agree. You know, and I think like for you to say that, Holly, you're so self-aware and you have had so much growth in your life. You know, but for me, like I started actually being somewhere where I thought that I've grown enough, but then the growth that I've had in the last 3 years was astronomical. It was just actually, yeah, understanding myself really helped with that. And I would say that we can still grow from here, you know, and yeah, we are the same person, but we could be healed person after this.
Yes. Yeah, completely. So you took the courage, didn't you? And you took the courage and you've built ADHD Girls. You've actually, tell me about a workshop you have today that anyone watching here today could join
Yes.
you. Is that right?
Thanks so much, Holly. To be honest, I was rushing to do like the slides and the workbook and everything, and then like, you know, in a typical ADHD storm, like it just kind of landed here. But yeah, I'm doing a workshop at 4 o'clock to 5:30 later. It's one that I actually put out, you know, as a response to the Daily Mail article about how ADHD medication is making everyone like an addict. So, you know, I decided to create a workshop and like what looks like a 25-page workbook to address this, you know, in terms of the risk and the benefits of medication, which, you know, like I'm not a psychiatrist, but I'm looking at it from my own experience and the experience of the community. And then, you know, what are the things you can do to help yourself, you know, diet, lifestyle, hormonal well-being, you know, so things like that. So yeah, that's happening today, 4 to 5:30 p.m. The link is in my bio and my story. Yeah, there's a workbook because everyone who attends my talks asks me for a printout of something. So like, here you go, you know. So
Oh, this is Brilliant. So everyone, if you've got more questions, it's as if we planned this at 4:30 to at 4 o'clock today to 5:30. Samantha's putting on this workshop. There's a worksheet, and you can go there and really understand this, brought on by the Daily Mail article. I have enjoyed every second talking to you. Thank goodness the world has people like you taking your lived experience, and now you're helping other people. And already it makes me emotional. I'm going to read some of the comments here. Black Breeze and Astronauts, thank you so much for answering my question. Lordy, this is making me cry. Oh, it's making me cry. It's such a relief to hear all of this. Sparkles Eco Shop, thank you so much for this today. Katie Goodwin Artist, Samantha, you are holding a stress ball. I love seeing that. Normalizing these strategies will help me so much. Maybe I won't have to sit on my hands at meetings anymore. Kate Windsor Art and Textiles, thank you. This is great. I'm so glad these conversations are happening. As a menopausal woman with an ADHD son, and seemingly I might be ADHD myself, this gives me hope. And that's what you're doing, Samantha. You're changing people's lives. And if you ever need support from us at Holly & Co. or myself, we are here because I truly believe in the power of neurodiversity. And I really want to help women get to the stage where they know themselves fully, and then we can work from there. So I wish you all the luck in the world. Good luck for 4 o'clock today. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time, Holly. It was such a privilege to be here and talk to you, and everyone who has joined. I really appreciate you all being here. We're all in this together, aren't we? Thank you.
We are absolutely. Lots of love. You just need to press the X in the top corner to go. Lots of love to you. Bye. Bye-bye.